Hey, special educators. Welcome to Teach, Taskbox, Inspire, the podcast dedicated to making your job as a special education teacher easier by making your instruction more fun for you and your students. Inside each episode, you'll learn how to get the most use out of your task boxes in the classroom. I'm your host, Lisa Holliday from Chalkboard Superhero, a veteran special education teacher passionate about empowering you with purposeful teaching strategies, helpful tips and tricks, and other classroom management tools that will help you thrive in your role. Let's get started with today's episode. Hey there, special educators, and welcome back to another episode of Teach, Taskbox, Inspire. I'm your host, Lisa Holliday, and today we're diving into a topic that is really so close to my heart: communication with parents in special education. I know I've talked about this before, but really as special education teachers, we know how crucial it is to have those open and positive communications with our students' families. When we team up with parents, we can truly create a supportive environment where our students can thrive. So let's chat about why effective communications matter so much. And I'll share 5 practical tips for building trust and strong relationships with our special education families. Now, I know that I have a very unique role in this because I am also a parent of a special needs child. So I see both ends, and that's why I am so very passionate about making sure that communication is transparent. So why is it so important? I think it's safe to say that parents are our students' first and best teachers. They know their child inside and out, their strengths, their challenges, what makes them light up, what makes them shut down. I remember a time when a parent told me, my child really struggles with changes in the schedule, but if you give them a 5-minute warning, they handle it so much better. That little piece of insight made a huge difference on how I structured our day and made transitions much smoother for everyone. This is just one example of how parents can provide critical information that kind of shapes how we teach and support their child. When parents are part of the process, they feel more empowered to reinforce learning at home. I've seen firsthand that when parents and teachers communicate well, our students benefit: better grades, improved behavior, stronger social skills. It's like we're all part of the same team, working together to reach that same goal. So, building trust and reducing anxiety. I've had parents come to IEP meetings looking so anxious, unsure of what to expect, feeling overwhelmed by the whole special education process. I really always try to remember that for many families, special education can be intimidating, a little daunting, like learning a new language with all of those silly acronyms and special terms and whatnot. I make it a point to start conversations by celebrating child's successes, no matter how small they are. I'll say things like, you should have seen the way your child smiled when they completed that puzzle. They were so proud of themselves. These little celebrations can go a long way in building that trust and reducing anxiety with parents. As special education teachers, we have a duty to keep parents informed about their child's progress. This isn't just about following the law. It's about respecting the parent roles as partners in their child's education. Keeping communication open shows that we value their input and we want to work with them, not just talk at them. It's about building a relationship that's centered on the child's success. And I've had teachers in the past tell me, I don't have time to make, connections with the students and the parents. But I'm telling you, that little connection is everything. All right, here's 5 tips to build communication and trust with those families. Number 1, establish regular communication channels. One thing I've found to be incredibly helpful is setting up a consistent way to communicate. Now, I like to use either weekly email updates, or we use an app called Parent Square in my district. I've heard other people use Class Dojo or whatever you choose. The thing is, consistency is key. It reassures parents that they'll always be in the loop. So whether you're writing in a notebook at the end of the day or sending home little notes, whatever you choose, you have to make sure that it is consistent. For example, I had a student who was struggling with social interactions. I started sending short daily notes to his parents about how recess went or any positive interactions he had. Those small updates were such a relief for them, and it made them feel more connected to what was happening. Now, I'll give you an example that's personal to me. So my son has Down syndrome, and in kindergarten, first and second grade, I had no idea what he was saying. He was very, very low verbal. I had no idea. He would come home and tell me about his day, and yet I have no idea what he was saying. And especially it was hard at the dinner table when his sisters are all talking about their day. Me and my husband are talking about our day, and he cannot share. He would say, me, 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 but I can't understand what he's saying. And so working with the school, I asked for them to send home daily reports and or pictures are worth 1,000 words. I know that's cliche, but sometimes when they would send me a picture, I would show it at the dinner table and I would say, oh, what did you do? And he would get so excited about being able to share his day too. So having this communication with parents makes a huge difference at home. All right, number 2, involve parents in the IEP process. The IEP process can feel so overwhelming, especially when there's a room full of professionals discussing a child's needs. I always make it a point to schedule meetings before the actual meeting so that we can talk about what the goals are going to look like and send over the draft IEP in advance so that they can review it. I'll ask them to think of any questions or changes that they might have so that I'm prepared. I once had a parent say, this is the first time I felt like my voice really mattered. And that's the goal, to make them feel valued and heard. I'll also ask parents about their child's strengths, what motivates them, what their goals are for the year. Including them in these decisions helps create a real partnership. When parents feel like they're part of the process, they're more invested in the outcome. All right, number 3 is celebrate successes and milestones. It's real easy to get caught up in the challenges, but it's just as important to celebrate the victories. Whether it's a small behavioral improvement or mastering a new skill, I always try to share those moments with parents. I remember a time when one of my students finally mastered tying his shoes after weeks and weeks, well, it was probably months of practice. His mom was so excited when I shared the news, and it made her day. These little moments remind parents that progress is happening and that we're celebrating their child's journey together. All right, number 4, be approachable and responsive. We all get busy, but taking the time out to respond to parent emails and phone calls promptly is crucial. It shows parents that we're here for them and that their concerns matter. I make it a priority to follow up on any questions they have, even if it's just a quick note to say, listen, I got your message and I'm working on it. This goes a long way in building that trust so they don't feel like they're being ignored. I also like to offer flexible options for meetings. Some parents might prefer a quick phone call instead of an in-person meeting, especially if they have a busy schedule or they don't have transportation. I found that accommodating their preferences makes communication feel less like a formality and more like a conversation. All right, be proactive in addressing concerns. No one likes to deal with problems after they've gotten out of hand. That's why being proactive is so important. If I notice that a student is super struggling, I'll reach out early. I had a student who was starting to get frustrated with math tasks, and instead of waiting for a meltdown, I called his mom to discuss what we could do differently. Together, we came up with a plan to break down the tasks and add in some hands-on, manipulatives. So by addressing these issues early, we were able to avoid those bigger challenges later on. A lot of times we get so busy and caught up in our day-to-day that a lot of these things kind of spiral and they get out of hand. And by the time we get, loop those parents in, they're like, oh, why didn't you call me weeks ago? We could have tried to work on this together. So trying to jump on those types of situations as quickly as possible is super helpful. So that's it, guys. Building strong communication with parents in special education is really about creating a team that's centered on that student's success. It's about being open and consistent and collaborative. When we approach communication this way, we create a positive and supportive environment where every student has the chance to reach their full potential. Remember, it's the little things, those small updates, moments of celebration, and the willingness to listen that make the big difference. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you found these tips helpful. If you have any stories about parent communication or questions, feel free to reach out. Let's keep the conversation going and continue to inspire each other. Until next time, guys, bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Teach, Taskbox, Inspire. I hope you've gained some tips and motivation to fuel your week ahead. If you're ready to explore more strategies for empowering your students as independent learners, be sure to dive into my free training at chalkboardsuperhero.com/training. And don't keep all this knowledge to yourself. Share this episode with your special education teacher friends who could use some motivation and inspiration. One more thing before you go. If you're finding this podcast helpful and want to show support, head to Apple Podcasts and leave your rating and review. Until next time, keep teaching, taskboxing, and inspiring.